From Austin Film Festival, this is On Story, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers, creators, and filmmakers. This week's On Story, Barry co-creators Alec Berg and Bill Hader.
The world of crime is very, very high stakes, but very low drama for Barry. But the world of acting is very low stakes, but very high drama. He's trying to deliver one line in a piece for Sally in some crap theater in front of an audience of 9 people, but like that's much more important to him than, saving his own life is.
This week on Story, Barry co-creators Alec Berg and Bill Hader discuss the process behind developing their award-winning dark comedy HBO series about a professional hitman who falls in love with acting. Can you talk about that dance of working together in your particular case and how you sort of split those creative functions even though you're both doing them?
We just started from a place of like, well, what's interesting and what would be fun, and you just sort of build it one brick at a time, and you just sort of follow it wherever it goes. Like I sort of have likened the process to like 2 idiots standing at a piano just hitting notes and going, well, that sounds good, or that doesn't sound good with that. It's an enormous amount of trial and error, which is probably maybe not time-wise or energy-wise the most efficient way to write. But, it seems to be working.
Part of it, for me also, is just trying to find the personal aspect to it. I was on Saturday Night Live, and I have terrible anxiety. I really bad stage fright. I don't like being in front of a lot of people. And I just was telling him like the irony of this, that, I got this job, but it was like slowly killing me. And then it was like, oh, that's an interesting emotion. And then we just kind of talked about that. And then it was like, the thing you said earlier, what if I was a hitman, And then it was like, well, if he does, but he hates it, but he's naturally good at killing people. But it's killing him. It's a thing. It's ruining his soul. And that's well, what does he want to be? And then we very quickly were like, oh, he should be in an acting class. And then it was kind of like, oh, what if Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver had to hang out with he found salvation and redemption with the people from Waiting for Guffman. And that in and of itself kind of brought the tone together.
That was us banging at the piano. It was like we kind of guessed about an actor. It's like, what's the opposite of being a hitman? Like, what's something that's like very, dramatic and flighty and, kind of not hardcore, and immediately after, it was just kind of a random stab at like, oh, those are juxtaposed. And then we started finding all of these.
I remember saying, because I had been in improv classes and it was like this weird therapy, And I remember Alec going like, "Hitman in an acting class is really good," and then that's when the lunch took a turn where it was like, "Oh no, we're in love now."
You've got some great folks clearly on your team. How did you go about? I mean, this is so in y'all's head, so much so because it's Bill's character, right? How did you go about assembling that team of people and knowing that you've got some people from Atlanta here and you've just got a really interesting group of people together? So clearly this is working for you. So how did you determine what you needed in that room outside of yourselves?
I'm going to sound really pretentious here, but Kurosawa always wrote with like 5 people. And he said it was because I'm a film nerd. I have the Criterion channel, just so you guys know. But Kurosawa wrote with 5 different people, and he said because you can't write from just one point of view. You can't see a human being just from one point of view. You have to see it from 5 different points of view to have a fully formed person. And it's kind of the same thing where you bring in people that have different strong suits that we just don't have. Like Liz Sarnoff comes from, Deadwood and Lost and these other great shows, Alcatraz and these other things, and she just has a story sense that, I mean, I don't think either of us really have. And I think Liz Sarnoff is someone who brings very bold story moves. You know, she's always the one pitching, like, a good example I would say is, you know, the end of episode 6, season 1, where they're in the car. And I remember saying pitching, and then you see the car get shot and it flips, you know, and then, you know, whatever. And she said, no, you should just cut right in the middle of them shooting. So we just think everybody died.
Taylor, they're already here! The plane's already here! Taylor, stop!
That's a very Liz Sarnoff thing of just make everybody go, wait, did everybody just get murdered? You know? And then in the next episode, reveal what happened at the top of 7, you know?
But you also need writers who sometimes when you say, we want this to connect to this, you need writers who go, why?
Yeah.
Why? That's not what you should want.
Yeah,
And
why
let
are
me
we
explain to you why. Right, that's a bad idea. You know, there was a thing, sorry to interrupt, Bill, but there was a thing season 1 where we had this idea that Barry gets Sally a laptop.
Hi.
How's it going? Hey, how did it go?
Great. Yeah, it all went so great.
Oh, great. When do you find out if you got it?
What's with the laptop?
Oh, this is for you. Yours was cracked, so I bought you a new one.
That's like 3 months of my rent.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want a drink?
Oh, yeah, well, I already have a drink, so.
All right, cool.
I haven't said hi to Natalie, so.
So we were explaining where we thought the story went, and a couple of the writers, particularly the women in the room, were like, that's a super creepy, weird gift. And we were like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, we were two dudes like, that's a really nice gift. And they're like, you're creeps if you think that's a nice gift. You sleep with the guy once and he gives you a laptop? Yeah. Like, what are you joking? And we were like, what is wrong with that? You know?
Eventually we, you know, because we respected and trusted their point of view, we were like, okay, well, wait, okay. If that's wrong, then what would happen because of that? And then we started going down this other road. And again, it was like standing at the piano and it's like, oh, okay, this note is wrong. So if this note is right, what comes after that? And we chased it down a totally different path and got something that ended up being much, much better.
I remember going, well, if we do that, then Barry and Sally are breaking up mid-season. And Liz went, that's way more interesting than them being together all season. And we were like, oh, okay, that's kind of true, you know?
Yeah.
And I go, what do you mean? She goes, I don't know, something's happening.
You're talking about beating on a piano, but to me it sounds kind of like a mix of intuition and like you've got people with story sense, but it's also like where's the right place for us to go here? Like, how do we move on from here? It seems like you're working this out through these episodes rather than having it laid out, like you said before, with all this backstory and information. But I mean, that's a little risky, right? That's like kind of a risky way of going about a show.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
I mean, I kind of always see it as like, you know, we call it filling buckets. You'll kind of go, oh, that scene seems like it wants to be in episode 4 someplace. And that scene wants to be here. Like, for instance, season 1, we kind of knew Barry goes up on stage and something bad's happened. And he actually has like this cathartic guilt. Realization that he's this killer and he has some kind of grief moment that is conceived as good acting.
It's my first tour. I was on fire watch with my friend Albert. At an OP. And, Albert.
Yeah.
You want to take a look at this?
Well, what do you see? Let me see. Nice. Oh, yeah. Yeah, about 700 yards out, right? See that? Yeah.
We saw, what you call it, some suspicious activity. And Albert was doing surveillance on the...
Keep going.
And so we had that, and so we start writing towards that. And then 2 months later, you're talking and you go, oh, what if he has to kill his friend Chris? And we go, hey, that could be the grief moment. And then everything just like snaps together and you're like, oh, thank God. So it's a lot of patience and it's a lot of talking it out.
You made a lot of choices in that scene that are kind of crazy. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have thought it would be intuitive that these two people would jump up on stage and start acting it out, you know? And that was, again, I'm going to throw out risky because it just felt like, wow, that could really, really not work, you know? Like that could really be kind of icky.
I think that scene, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alec, came out of us talking about what's the acting class doing this season. And we didn't, the season 1, they did this Shakespeare festival, and we were kind of like, we don't really want them doing another writer's work or another series of plays. And it was like, what if it's more personal? And instead of it being this awful thing, it was actually one of the best moments of his life. It was the first time he ever felt accepted. And then when we talked about it, it was like, oh, what if the audience, you know, you see the juxtaposition of what happened in Afghanistan, which was, you know, Hiro Murai said it's like a kid who's the new kid at school who's really good at asteroids, you know, and like everyone's like, whoa, you know, and this community that he gets from murdering somebody who he doesn't see, who we don't see. So he has no real connection to this human, to what these actors think he must have gone through.
No way. No.
You killed them both, soldier.
I killed him. I killed someone. Oh my God. Oh God. I killed someone. I'll never be able to forgive myself.
Is that how it happened?
Oh, terrible.
Mother... What? Oh, you kidding me? He got him.
Both of them?
Smoke both those Dude! Barry, here's a stone cold killer, fellas, from 700 yards.
Jesus,
oh
Berg,
my God. What are you doing?
no.
I was gonna take the bib off, but forget it.
You have a very non-conventional piece here, so it's, to me, a little bit more than just telling a story and trusting in that process. I mean, you've got an absurdist layer here, you've got drama, like outright drama, and then clearly comedy, right? And so that's a lot to mix together in 30 minutes, right? And keep people, and plot. Is it something you two are always thinking about?
It's more intuitive, and it kind of goes back to that idea of you know, following, you know, the emotion and the logic of things, you know, and you kind of go, like I remember someone seeing it, or someone interviewing us goes, I don't get why the bad guys are funny. And I go, well, they don't know they're bad guys, you know?
I just get call from home.
Okay.
They are sending Lucky's replacement. They are sending Stovka.
What? Oh my God. Stovka? He's coming here? Oh my God.
Who's Stovka? He is best assassin in history of Chechnya.
Yes!
A legend.
Oh, wow. Okay, he's still tender, but he is beyond legend, okay? He has taken out whole armies by himself. He must have murdered over, what, hundreds?
More. Way more. He's unreal. Simply unreal.
Okay, when I was a kid, I saw him once walking out the discotheque. He flicked cigarette at Berg, knocked it out of sky. When will he be here?
Within hours, they said.
Yeah, real quick. What does this mean for me and Barry?
We'll probably kill you, but I haven't checked with Goron yet.
they came to LA with a dream, just like Barry, you know, and they're just people. And so you're writing it from their point of view. What do they want? How are they feeling? How are they, you know, how do you relate to them? Big turning point for us, you know, in writing the show, I think, was the scene where Barry kills Chris, because it was kind of the moment in season 1 where you were like, okay, you know, you just get to that place. Well, what would happen here?
So I'm gonna drop you off, and then I'm gonna keep my fat trap shut, and then, you know, I promise you, no one will ever know any. Wait.
And it was him killing Chris, but also once that scene ended and going, well, can you be funny after that? And we both come out of comedy, and I think anybody would say, well, after that, you know, you can't have any jokes or anything because that's such a sad scene and it's so terrible. And it was like, yeah, why not? You know, these other people, these other characters don't know about that. They don't know what just happened. You know? And so why would they stop being funny? And then we did it and no one said anything. It held together. And I think the reason it holds together is because it's honest. Everyone's being honest.
Many men making much money. Many men making much money.
All right, everyone, let's focus. Bring it in. Bring it in. All right, listen, it's 2 minutes until curtain. 2 minutes. It is a veritable who's who of Hollywood out there. The red-headed reader from ICM and Daniel Meldman from Gersh.
He came?
All right, now listen. I wish you Godspeed. I wish you courage. And no matter what happens, loud, fast, and keep going. Hands in.
Guys.
1, 2, 3.
I also think weirdly, the show is about a guy who is in one very dark, violent world who's trying to make his way into a lighter, happier, more communal place. The more jarring the tone sometimes shifts from one to the other, weirdly, the more it puts you with Barry, right? In this sense of like, oh, the audience is going through the same kind of, you know, growth and struggle that Barry is, because Barry's getting ripped back and forth between these two worlds. Something goes from super dark to super funny. It's surprising and jarring, and you're kind of with, like, that's Barry's emotional journey, is that, you know, he's simultaneously having to kill people and having to audition, you know, and it's also, I think, very telling what Barry cares deeply about. That was another thing that we landed on very early, is we kind of landed on this idea that in the two worlds, that the world of crime is very, very high stakes, but very low drama for Barry. Like, people are dying, but he's not emotionally moved by it. He's kind of dead to it. But the world of acting is very low stakes, but very high drama. He's trying to deliver one line in a piece for Sally in some crap theater in front of an audience of 9 people, but like, that's much more important to him than, you know, saving his own life is.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Barry himself, and just I mean, to me, he's just such a fascinating character. I think he's so attractive in some ways because of what he isn't. You know, I don't like him. I don't dislike him. I find him to be somebody, though, that he's around. He's just interesting. He becomes whatever is in the room. He sort of soaks it up like tofu. How much of you is in this, and in your writing process, how much are you thinking of it as you're writing it and sort of self-correcting?
I will say Barry's kind of always the last thing we think about. Alec can attest. I'm like one of those people, I don't really write well for myself. I like writing for other people, but when it comes to me, I'm like, yeah, no, we'll figure it out. You put it on its feet and you kind of go, was that all right? You know, it's like, did that make sense? You know? And I think a lot of it, you know, again, without trying to sound too pretentious or whatever, kind of comes from, yourself and feelings that you've had of not fitting in, wanting a community, feeling guilty falling in love with somebody and not knowing how to handle that, you know, and looking for a mentor, you know, needing a mentor, codependency, you know, all those things are things that I can, relate to on some level, but I have a very hard time being able to intellectualize it in the writer's room. So it usually comes out as like, maybe you would say something like this, you know.
Some of the stuff that I find like that fleshes Barry out so much are the two relationships with, I mean, he may be bad at his girlfriend relationship, but really he's a terrible picker of a father figure. And he has these two people who are equally narcissistic and maybe one more evil than the other. But the relationships there, they do feel very real to me, even though the Stephen Root's character Fuchs is so insane, you know.
Stephen Root's character Fuchs, in the initial version of the pilot that we actually shot, was a very dark, angry, threatening, ominous kind of bully of a character. And when we started writing the series, and it was one thing that HBO was really helpful with, is they were just like, look, we know what a hitman is, we know what an actor is, we know what an acting teacher is, we know what a fledgling actress is. We don't really know what a hitman agent is. And so that it's not, something's off there. And when we started thinking about, well, okay, who is Fuchs and how would he have gotten to Barry and how would Barry have gotten into this? We started realizing that Fuchs being like a family friend who was kind of like a low rent con man who had sort of pretended to be Barry's friend and really a father figure to him, not a boss.
Oh, God, I'm worried about you, buddy. He looks like the old Barry, where he had a purpose.
No, I think I'm just burnt out. You know, maybe I need a break.
Hey, you know what I think?
What?
I think what we should do is shake things up a little bit. You know, so instead of burning another small town hood in some snowed-in Rust Belt, what do you say to a little trip out to sunny Los Angeles?
You came here to give me an assignment?
It's a Chechen mob. A guy by the name of Goran Pazar needs an outsider to handle something embarrassing. It's great money. Get us a lot closer to where we need to be to hang it all up someday.
Not only was that character much more fun, but it actually made it much more kind of sad and it made Barry's relationship much more, I think, heart-wrenching, that it was like, oh God, this guy, Barry really trusts this guy. This is like his only friend, the only guy he talks to in the span of a day, and the guy's clearly manipulating him. And so that change, I think, made a huge difference in the way we wrote the show. And we found a ton of humor that wasn't there before.
You start there, and then as it starts to flesh out, and you start moving along with the journey of this Barry's changing, you start to realize, Fuchs, it's really complicated, but he really loves Barry. That's the closest that he's, once you talk about it, you're like, well, this is the closest this guy has ever come to really loving somebody. So, you have, it's a very complicated thing, but then that gives Steven something to play. And again, that comes from being in the room and everybody talking about, mentors and father figures and what they themselves being mentors to people and or relationships they've had with people that were kind of complicated and messed up, and then you put that in there.
You've been watching A Conversation with Alec Berg and Bill Hader on Story. On Story is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's On Story project that also includes the On Story radio program, podcast, book series, and the On Story archive, accessible through the Whitliff Collections at Texas State University. To find out more about On Story and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com. Want to see On Story live? Join us at Austin Film Festival's annual Writers' Conference each October. Visit www.austinfilmfestival.com to find out more about badges and passes to attend the festival.